I saw Islam tweeted a couple of days ago. He mentioned that he's like, finally, I'm going to start talking because I know Islam stays off social media. Islam was saying that it was him and Ilya for the White House. And they were saying, and Islam said that Ilya was the reason why it didn't happen because he asked for too much money. Is there anything that you could talk about?
That's not true.
Not true. Okay.
That's not true.
Our industry's in kind of this strange time, right? We got O'Malley booked up. We got Piera going up a weight class while the heavyweight champion is out. We got Gable Steveson with a ton of steam, and he's yet to be signed to the biggest organization. And by the way, we've got rumors and nothing more than that of the return of Conor McGregor. Like, our industry is in a fairly weird time. There's even a women's fight that people were clamoring to see between Kayla and Amanda, and that got delayed due to injury. Like, our industry is in a weird time. So when I tell
Fight fans, if those explosive headlines about Islam Makhachev and Dana White brought you here, we're uncovering the behind-the-scenes drama that's got everyone talking. This goes way beyond a single bout. We're looking at the entire UFC ecosystem in chaos right now. The promotion finds itself in unprecedented territory, with key stars either sidelined or uncertain about their futures. McGregor's comeback remains pure speculation. O'Malley's dealing with setbacks. Heavyweight champions are inactive, creating this powder keg environment where every move by a top champion like Islam gets magnified under intense scrutiny. Dana White and company can't afford any missteps during this turbulent period, making Islam's recent decisions absolutely crucial to his standing.
Islam and Ilya is a big fight. That's true. That's one of the bigger fights that you can make right now. That's not that big of a fight. That's going to do good business. If you had the ability, like, that's... Why do I say that? Well, because Ilya's headlining the White House, and every interview that Ilya gets, and people are dying to talk to him. It's just simple supply and demand. We haven't had a lot of supply of Ilya lately.
The Islam versus Ilya Topuria situation presents this intriguing contradiction, simultaneously massive yet somehow underwhelming from the UFC's perspective. While fans and Ilya himself are relentlessly pushing this narrative, treating it like the only meaningful fight available, the promotion might be eyeing more strategically sound alternatives, or growing frustrated with external forces dictating their matchmaking. Ilya's media blitz consistently circles back to Islam in every single interview, manufacturing undeniable public pressure that puts Islam under a microscope. When a champion appears to be cherry-picking opponents rather than accepting all legitimate challenges, it creates exactly the kind of headache that infuriates UFC brass.
On this media tour, I've only seen one interview where Ilya has addressed Justin Gaethje, and it was great. Ilya's very good at these things. He told Donald Trump not to blink, not to adjust his hair, that he's going to put Justin Gaethje out. Those are fighting words, particularly when you're dealing with Justin Gaethje.
The fact that Ilya Topuria's calculated dismissal of Justin Gaethje speaks volumes about his strategic approach to building hype. Throughout his entire media campaign, he's mentioned Gaethje exactly once, delivering such dismissive yet impactful words that it reveals his true intentions. This isn't random trash talk, it's a deliberate tactic to keep all focus laser-focused on Islam Makhachev while simultaneously elevating the perceived importance of their potential clash. By openly disrespecting Gaethje, Ilya makes it appear that Islam is the only opponent worthy of his attention. This manufactured pressure creates a dangerous narrative trap for Islam, where any perceived avoidance of legitimate contenders to chase super fights could trigger Dana White's legendary wrath.
But in fairness, I didn't hear a whole lot from Justin leading into his interim title fight against Paddy that he was counted out against. My own partners of DraftKings had him at a 2.5 to 1 underdog. And that's when the fight went off. It was 3 to 1 underdog.
Enter Justin Gaethje, the perpetually underestimated warrior who keeps getting overlooked despite his credentials. Remember his interim title fight against Poirier, where everyone counted him out as a massive underdog. That history of being dismissed is absolutely critical to understanding today's championship landscape. If Islam bypasses Gaethje, a genuine fan favorite, legitimate top contender, and BMF title holder for another bout, it raises serious questions about competitive integrity. For Dana White and the UFC brass, maintaining their ranking system's credibility and logical championship progression is non-negotiable. Overlooking Gaethje isn't just disrespectful to him personally, it's a potential disruption to the entire lightweight division's natural order that could force Dana's hand in ways that definitely won't favor Islam.
And it seemed like Gaethje was a little under the radar. And by the way, I was also leaning towards Paddy. And I was leaning towards Paddy because Justin looked like he had 1 foot in and 1 foot out. He was talking about, give me a title fight or give me my release. I'm going to retire. Not I'm going to go fight somewhere else. Just I'm going to be done. And generally that idea and that attitude doesn't work out for guys. It was kind of a surprise when Justin went out there and looked so.
Gateway's previous 1 foot in, 1 foot out mentality, where he openly flirted with retirement or requesting his release, represents exactly the kind of risky game that rarely pays dividends with fighters. It demonstrated a concerning lack of full commitment that Dana White absolutely despises in his roster. The surprise came when Justin performed brilliantly despite this questionable mindset, but the lesson remains clear. Now apply this context to Islam's situation. If he's perceived as making excessive demands or being overly selective about opponents, the promotion views it as that same problematic 1 foot out attitude, showing insufficient embrace of whatever challenges the UFC presents. This behavior pattern can quickly lead to champions being sidelined or banned from premium opportunities when Dana feels they're not fully invested in the promotion's vision.
He's very much in the same spot. Like, right? I mean, when Patty was getting ready to fight Justin, he wasn't overly focused on Justin. He was looking ahead and he was looking to Ilia Topuria. He was talking about Arman Sarukian, and we were all buying into it. Like, yeah, this stop off here with Gaethje, and we're going to do it for the interim belt, but that's just a little bit of delay while Ilia's got his heart broken and he comes back into it. Like, it was just one of these things. We all accepted that, but
the recurring pattern of overlooking Justin Gaethje creates a dangerous precedent that directly impacts Islam's position. Multiple opponents, including Poirier, consistently look past Gaethje toward fights with Ilia or Arman Sarukian, creating this disrespectful narrative that surrounds one of the division's most deserving contenders. If Islam actively pursues the Ilia super fight without first addressing the clear deserving challenger in Gaethje, it amplifies perceptions of cherry-picking behavior. Dana White seeing a champion bypass obvious contenders for personal preference fights or bowing to outside pressure could easily become grounds for serious frustration, potentially resulting in refusing Islam's desired matchups or effectively banning him from certain opportunities until he handles divisional business properly.
accepting a little quickly that Justin Gaethje is going to just go out and fall down against Ilia. And it is interesting. Like Ilia and Islam there's something there. There's something there.
The casual assumption that Justin Gaethje would simply crumble against Ilia reveals a serious underestimation of his proven abilities, yet this sentiment seems to dominate current narratives. This widespread dismissal of a legitimate top contender, combined with the mysterious tension brewing between Ilia and Islam, creates complicated situations for UFC matchmakers. When fans and fellow fighters readily write off Gaethje, it becomes easier for champions like Islam to justify pursuing different opponents instead. However, Dana White's primary responsibility involves ensuring competitive integrity and maintaining clear pathways to titles. If Islam capitalizes on public narratives to avoid Gaethje, it could easily trigger a ban on his preferred matchups until he fulfills his divisional obligations by facing deserving challengers first.
For me, that fight needs to happen at 170. Now, perhaps that's a foregone conclusion. I can just share with you that Islam has discussed coming back to 155 pounds. He has fainted that he wants this fight so badly he'll return to 155. And I'm a little light on that idea because when he was a 55-pounder and Ilia came to 55, Islam left. So I'm a little light on the idea, and if somebody's going to have an opportunity for champ status, it should be the guy that didn't flinch, and that's Ilia. So we should do it at 170.
This segment drops a bombshell that exposes Islam's potentially selective commitment issues in stark detail. The revelation that an Islam-Ilia fight would need to happen at 170 pounds leads to the critical discovery, and Islam showed interest in returning to 155 for Ilia, but when Ilia was actually competing at 155, Islam mysteriously departed. This perceived dodge represents a massive red flag suggesting Islam might be using weight classes as leverage or strategically avoiding specific challenges at particular weights. This exact type of behavior ignites Dana White's legendary fury, potentially leading to Islam being banned from cross-divisional super fights or even from campaigning for them until he proves his willingness to fight all comers within his own division without manipulative conditions.
Right. I mean, everybody's a pawn in your own game of chess that you're playing. Ilia has calculatedly decided that Justin Gaethje is not as interesting as Islam. So Ilia, from a calculated standpoint, is doing interviews, not mentioning Justin, and he's talking about Islam.
Ilia Topuria is executing a masterful chess strategy, leveraging every media appearance to systematically sideline Justin Gaethje while maintaining exclusive focus on Islam. He dismisses Gaethje as uninteresting while deliberately shaping public narrative to support his agenda. This external manipulation of championship pictures creates immense pressure on both the UFC and Islam directly. Dana White must balance legitimate contenders against public interest and champions' personal desires, creating complex political situations. If Ilia successfully convinces the fan base that Islam represents the only meaningful fight available, it complicates the UFC's ability to enforce other logical matchups. However, Dana's also notorious for banning fighters from narrative control games, pushing them into fights he deems appropriate regardless of external noise or pressure.
Ian Gary came out and he's now talking about Islam. He's talking about your hand was hurt. Now that you're healed, let's go and fight. And these are interesting things. And these are a little bit behind the scenes. And maybe you're aware of that and maybe you're not. But Ian Gary was offered Islam and Islam said no for the White House card. He said, I need a little more time. I'm kind of banged up.
Ian Gary's emergence into this discussion, directly calling out Islam about his injured hand, adds another complicated layer to an already messy situation. Behind-the-scenes details reveal that Ian Gary was offered Islam for a major card, but Islam declined, citing injury and needing additional recovery time. This represents a direct refusal of a UFC proposed fight, which carries significant implications. While injuries are legitimate reasons for declining bouts, the timing and context matter enormously. If Dana White suspects Islam as being overly strategic or cautious with injury claims, it could seriously damage their professional relationship. Such refusals, particularly for high-profile events, can lead to champions being temporarily sidelined or banned from future opportunities if the UFC detects patterns of avoidance.
But at the same time, Islam said, if you get me Ilia, I'll fight. I'm still hurt. I'm hurt just the same amount, but just for the opportunity, I will take that fight. That happened.
This represents the most damning information revealed in the entire conversation, and it's absolutely explosive. Despite turning down Ian Gary due to injury concerns, Islam simultaneously stated he would fight Ilia Topuria while dealing with the exact same injury and identical recovery timeline. Let that devastating contradiction sink in completely. This transcends simple opponent selection. It's a blatant declaration of selective availability based purely on personal preference. It clearly implies certain fights justify injury risks while others don't meet that threshold. This behavior absolutely infuriates Dana White because it signals a champion prioritizing personal preferences or money fights over divisional integrity and other contenders' opportunities. This conduct could easily lead to Islam being banned from specific super fights or facing public condemnation from Dana, forcing him into less desirable matchups to rebuild the UFC's trust.
So that's kind of what Ian Gary is talking about. But is Ian Gary playing it the right way?
The commentator raises the crucial strategic question about Ian Gary's approach and whether he's playing his cards correctly by calling out Ilia instead of continuing pressure on Islam. This highlights the precarious tightrope all fighters must walk in pursuit of meaningful opportunities. Gary's immediate pivot to calling out Ilia after his victory rather than pressing Islam further shows smart adaptation to changing circumstances. But the underlying tension remains. Heinies was offered Islam. Islam declined due to injury. Then Islam expressed willingness to fight Ilia while injured. If Gary or any fighter feels they're being strategically avoided by champions, it creates bad blood and messy divisional politics. Dana White demands clear, compelling fights, and if Islam's choices create ambiguity and frustration for multiple contenders, it becomes a problem Dana will inevitably address with stern warnings or future request bans.
Ways to look at it. You go after the fight that you can get, which if he's been offered Islam, it's very relevant that he come out and he let the world know that Islam turned that fight down. Which Islam is not denying. Islam will back him up on that story. Yeah, my hand was hurt and it's healed now. Like, everybody's saying the same thing.
Ian Gary's decision to publicly expose Islam's refusal of their proposed fight, a refusal Islam doesn't even attempt to deny, represents a powerful strategic move in this ongoing narrative war. It creates undeniable public awareness that Islam actively chose not to fight him, regardless of injury legitimacy. In the UFC's ecosystem, optics carry enormous weight and influence. Champions turning down fights, even with valid medical reasons, especially when publicly confirmed, inevitably raises questions about their genuine commitment and willingness to face all legitimate challenges. Dana White's job involves managing these public perceptions carefully If Islam appears to constantly make conditional acceptances or strategic rejections, it damages his standing significantly, potentially leading to Dana banning him from making such demands or even headlining major cards until he accepts fights without controversy.
So it's very important that you go after a fight you can get, or it's very effective to go after a headline that you never have to answer for. I mean, that's a...
This analysis explores the strategic dilemma every fighter faces: pursue fights you can actually secure or chase headline-grabbing matchups you never have to deliver on. For Ian Gary, this means weighing Islam's confirmed refusal against the appeal of challenging a champion like Ilya for maximum exposure. But Islam's choices are creating these exact dilemmas for fighters across multiple divisions simultaneously. If Islam makes himself unavailable for logical matchups while pursuing specific high-profile alternatives, he inadvertently creates bottlenecks throughout the system. Dana White prioritizes keeping the promotional machine moving smoothly. When a champion's selective availability disrupts multiple divisions and creates strategic headaches for other deserving fighters, it sends clear signals for Dana to intervene and potentially ban such selective choices until championship pictures become clearer and more fluid.
Ilya's making waves in his division. He's talking about his champion. The number one fight that people want to see is in that division. It should be Gary. Gary's in the division. He's the top-ranked guy. Like, that should really piss Gary off. At what point do you invoke the Ilya card? Versus, I'm a 170-pounder, and I don't need to invoke a 155-pounder. Like,
The commentary emphasizes the natural competitive order that should govern these situations. Ilya's making significant waves in his division, so the logical progression for top-ranked welterweights like Ian Gary should involve challenging Ilya directly. The strategic question of when to invoke the Ilya connection versus focusing on division-specific opponents exposes the chaos Islam's preferences are fueling throughout the system. When 170-pound champions constantly call out 155-pound champions, and 170-pound contenders join the mix, it creates dangerous blurred lines. This confusion actively harms the UFC's structural integrity. If Islam's actions contribute to such widespread disarray, Dana White might intervene decisively, banning him from cross-divisional pursuits until the lightweight division gets properly settled and cleared of political complications.
He's taken his eye off Justin Gaethje. Like, everything is clear in hindsight. When the White House card is over, like, it's going to be so clear. But history does repeat itself, and this is the second time in a row, at least through the media, it appears that the opponent has overlooked.
History continues repeating itself as Ilya, like many others before him, appears to have completely taken his focus off Justin Gaethje. This recurring theme of Gaethje being consistently overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated brings us back to the fundamental issues of fighter choices and UFC control mechanisms. The commentator emphasizes that patterns become obvious only in hindsight, but the damage is already done. If Islam knowingly or unknowingly participates in this disrespectful pattern by pursuing fights outside his immediate obvious contenders, he contributes to a perceived lack of respect for divisional integrity. This kind of systematic pattern, where deserving contenders get continually sidestepped for more glamorous alternatives, could easily push Dana White to impose strict mandates on Islam's next opponent selection, or even ban him from making certain demands entirely, forcing him to address challenges directly in front of him to restore proper competitive balance.